Hello everyone, JJ here from 22 Explosive Hits. I am now responding to a soundtrack tag that is actually part 2, but I'm late to the party, so these are my picks and my answers to the questions for the soundtrack part 2 tag that's out there. Um, just want to rattle through them now. First, the oldest year-wide soundtrack in my collection. That would be the soundtrack to The King and I, and that was released in 1956. It has on here "Shall We Dance?" Dun, dun, dun. Also has on here lots of really fun tunes from the musical "The King and I." This is the soundtrack to the album. I was fortunate when I was younger to see Yul Brynner on in Chicago actually perform this before he died, and that's one of my cool memories I have of this soundtrack. But this is the oldest one in my collection. It's from 1956. I noticed if you go in the bargain bins as well, you can really find a lot of these because I think a lot of people have died and given their stuff, and this one is very common in people's older people's collections. The next is a soundtrack that needs a reissue or first time vinyl release, and my pick for that is the Doors soundtrack. This movie was released in March of 1991. It has a really good, I think, selection of different songs on it, as well as, of course, it has Doors music on there, as well as his poetry readings from on the American, oh, what's that called? The American soundtrack that he did of his poetry that was released after his death, where the Doors put some of his poetry to music. To name some of the ones on this record, uh, it has the movie performed by Jim Dorison and the music by the Doors, Riders on the Storm, Love Street, Break On Through, The End, Light My Fire, Ghost Song, Roadhouse Blues. Has Heroin by the Velvet Underground on here. It also has uh, Stoned Immaculate, another one by Jim Morrison and the Doors. When the Music's Over, The Severed Garden, and also has on here L.A. Woman. It also has a really cool opening as well for an orchestral version on here as well. It's performed by the Atlanta City Orchestra. It's let's see if I'm saying this right, Carmine Barange. It's the one that goes dun 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 dun. They played it when he was uh, working with that one woman who was kind of like into witchcraft or something like that when he was getting high in the movie. But I've not seen a vinyl release for this, other than maybe there might be a bootleg or something floating out there. But this would be a really cool 180 gram cool release soundtrack, I think, to put out there. If they could, I'm sure they could probably get the rights to it, and I think it'd be a really good release. The most valuable score in my soundtrack, I have to go. I'm just one based on Discogs. Is my Star Wars that I have. My version is an original release from 1977. As I showed in an earlier video for May the 4th Be With You. I also even have an order form in here from 1977 for T-shirt merchandise that was actually in this record. This is the original 20th Century Fox release of this record. It's been reissued many times. Um, both in CD and in vinyl. There's even a really cool vinyl version out there that I'd love to get my hands on where you can have a hologram and you can actually put a flashlight up to the hologram as your record's spinning and see, I believe it's the Millennium Falcon, if I'm not mistaken. You can see actually in the light. It's really cool. If you go on YouTube, there's many videos that people have posted about it. Um, Favorite bargain bin soundtrack. This one was actually in my house growing up as a kid. My mom had this one. She was big into Barbara. She is still big into Barbara Streisand. This was Chris Christopherson and Barbara Streisand. It's from the 1976 version of Star Is Born. There's a Judy Garland version as well as the Bradley Cooper version out there as well. This is the one from 1976. I've seen this out there in lots of bargain bins. I got this from a bargain bin. So much so is that I think I bought one. I got one for like $1, and then I found it a better version again for $1, a better quality one. So then I just bought it again. So this is like the latest and greatest, but I'm sure if I go diving more, I'm going to find another one of it. The hit song in this one that was I believe it was Oscar nominated or won an Oscar, was Evergreen. The one that goes Love Soft as an Easy Chair. Also to note, Gary Busey is also in this movie. One of his earlier films that he did. Favorite soundtrack that has color to it, that would be Pulp Fiction's re-release from Target. You can see the Target sticker on this record as well. Really good artwork as well on the soundtrack. It's got a really good eclectic. Quentin Tarantino did a really good job of both putting movie dialogue from it. So Samuel L. Jackson's whole rant about Ezekiel 5:28 is on here, as well as Jungle Boogie is the most popular one by Kool and the Gang, has that surf opening that was in the movie. But just to show you the color, this has a yellow soundtrack to it. So it's got really nice colored vinyl on this beautiful re-release here of Pulp Fiction that I picked up at Target. Nice one. The next one is favorite artwork on the jacket. The one I'm going to go with is Tootsie. I really like how they designed this record to be kind of like you can put it like this or like this, and it has on here both him as the story goes, or the plot line is that he's either a man or a woman, and so has both him on here as Dorothy Michaels or Michael Dorsey. Either one is on this record. And then on the back, it even goes with the photos of the feet of the two of them, as well as some pictures from the movie as well. It's also one of my all-time favorite comedies. Bill Murray has a part in this movie. He went uncredited, actually. You don't see his credit until the end of the credits. And the reason why he went uncredited is he was afraid, because of his comedy, that his part would take away from the story or what they were actually trying to go after, and he was worried it would be classified at that time as being a Bill Murray movie. So he went uncredited for it, but his performance in here he has some of the best one-liners in this movie that actually add a lot to the plot and add a lot to the story. He plays Dustin Hoffman's roommate in the movie. Next one is most underrated score composer in my opinion. That would be this one right here, Wang Chung, To Live and Die in LA. I've gotten a lot of snickers, laughs, jolts over this one over the years. By just saying Wang Chung, I think people shut down right away and be like, Wang Chung, Dance Hall Days, and that really stupid song from I think it's stupid, and I'll admit it, is Everybody Have Fun Tonight, Everybody Wang Chung Tonight. However, Frasier on Cheers did make a cool one-liner out of that one when he said it on Cheers in his own characterization of it. However, if you've ever watched the movie To Live and Die in LA, it's a really good movie. The guy who made French Connection made this movie. He used Wang Chung to do the score. So they have both vocals on here, which is they have the theme song To Live and Die in LA, as well as another song called Lullaby, and that's on this soundtrack. So it's got some really good stuff, as well as some good instrumental stuff that really fits the movie if you ever watched it. Also to mention, Willem Dafoe is also in this movie as well. The Green Goblin himself, he plays the bad guy. This is a role that he did actually before he did Platoon, which he was known for back in 1986. His Oscar-nominated performance of playing the soldier in Platoon, but this was before that one. So this is a really good flick. I recommend people check it out, see how the soundtrack blends. I recommend anybody get this. This one was actually, I think because of that, I was able to get a really mint copy on Discogs for only $7. So I thought, personally, it was a bargain. Next one is the favorite song from a soundtrack score that is your jam, my jam, so to speak. The one I picked, I have many jams, and I do follow soundtracks a lot, being that I am a movie buff. I have a lot of soundtrack. A lot of times I hear music just from seeing a movie over and over again, or seeing a movie many times, and the soundtrack just sits in my head. So I go out there looking for the soundtracks themselves. But the one I picked was "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins. The reason I'm showing two records is it's on both of these records. The first one is on the Risky Business soundtrack. The Risky Business soundtrack is a really good soundtrack of some really good tunes. It has the classic old time rock and roll with Tom Cruise in his underwear that we all know. It also has many Tangerine Dream did all the instrumentals for this movie. Really good score, really good stuff to listen to. Um, Muddy Waters is on this one, as well as Prince, Journey, and then the Phil Collins In the Air Tonight. They really filmed this really well. It's really well artsy film of the time. Kind of got rated along with all the teeny bopper comedies that came out in this era. However, this one I think stands out as being a awesome flick as far as story goes, as far as the way it was filmed. They did a really good slow motion with the trains in Chicago using the song In the Air Tonight. I recommend checking the movie out as well as seeing how it goes in this one. And anybody knows that the drum riff in the Air Tonight, it's like you just wait for that drum part that's in this song. I've seen Phil Collins do this song live, unbelievable. And when he does this one, the other one soundtrack it's also on in my collection that I wanted to point out as well is Miami Vice. This has the Miami Vice theme on it. It has a bunch of songs that were from the TV show. The big one by Glenn Frey from the Eagles. He has two songs on here. You Belong to the City, as well as the Smuggler's Blues. I think the Smuggler's Blues is a better one. You Belong to the City was the bigger hit actually off of this record. So this actually has a rap on here by Grandmaster Melly Mel. Really good blend of different songs, but again, In the Air Tonight's on here because they used it in the TV show as well. The next one is show two different soundtracks, scores that have different versions of the same song. In my particular case, I'm going to show the same song by the same artist. However, on this one, I have the soundtrack for Staying Alive and the soundtrack for Saturday Night Fever. Staying Alive is the sequel done by Sylvester Stallone, directed by him. He has a cameo in the movie. And he brought back the Bee Gees to record it. The story I read on Wikipedia is that Bee Gees actually dropped out of recording it. They kind of walked away from it. They recorded some original songs for this for Staying Alive, but they did not like the direction the movie was going. They didn't like the direction at all that Sylvester Stallone was taking. So a lot of the songs had to be finished by Frank Stallone, his brother, and he actually got a hit out of it called Far From Over. But the one I want to point out is the theme song of Staying Alive that is in the opening of Saturday Night Fever. It's also in Staying Alive. Very cheesy part to it where he says, I want to strut is in the end of Staying Alive, the movie. So they made it out like this was part of his life when it was like based on the walk that he did in Saturday Night Fever. My hands it's opposite for me, so bear with me. So what I wanted to point out is I noticed that they have two different versions. On the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack has the original full-length version of Saturday Night Fever. I don't know if it was for album space or they just wanted to throw it on there, but for Staying Alive, they have a much shorter, quick version of Staying Alive on the Staying Alive soundtrack than they have on the other one. I prefer the version on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, obviously. It's much fuller. I think it's much to what the Bee Gees wanted. But it also has some good. The Saturday Night Fever, I think, does have some good Bee Gees tunes on it as well. Frank Stallone, as well as Cynthia Rhodes, also who was Richard Marx's ex-wife, and was in Dirty Dancing, also does some of the vocals on the Staying Alive soundtrack as well. She's in the movie. So she's in this one as well. So that's what I picked for those versions. And for the last question, is a soundtrack that I own that I could part with. I know the nostalgia goes with this one, but I'm picking Flash Gordon. I got this to be nostalgic. I loved this record when I was 8. It had dialogue on it. I still remember Ming talking on the record, as well as the theme track by Queen, and Freddie Mercury did a great job on Flash. But when I had to get the record because I remembered it. When I listened to it again, now being older, it did sound a lot of really cheesy, a lot of real cheesy synthesizers, a lot of really cheesy stuff on it. I didn't really get much out of it for the second time around. So if I had to part with this one, I probably could. I got this one actually in pretty good shape. It even has some really good artwork on the back as well. That's him jumping from the end shot of the movie. That's from that right there. But Yeah, it just didn't work for me. The movie is, I mean, I like the movie. I like what it's about, but I just remember the soundtrack being so much fun. But I think it more awe captured me when I was a child than it does awe capture me now. That's what it boils down to. Not saying, I guess I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that it's great. I'm just saying it didn't strike me the same way that I think it struck me as when I was a kid, and so I was kind of let down by it. So if I had to part with this one out of my collection, I would. So those are my tags for the soundtrack tag that's going around, part two. And I will hope to. I've been looking at some of the other videos out there. I'm seeing really good stuff. Hope you guys take a look at my picks and comment down below. Thank you.